A gute Nisru Chaga Boisai. Liebe Geschmaß im Miros Jus Bas Mordechai. Itmar Chatzi Zais Chutz Lizmanoi. Okay, blue is Chutz Lizmanoi. Blue is Chutz Lizmanoi. Pink is Chutz L'Mokim. So, in order for basically all we're talking about, this whole Amud is all about Chatzi. If it was a whole machshava, let's say this was Chutz Lizmanoi, and then he put a half a kazayis Chutz L'Mokim, it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be Chutz L'Zman. It's going to be pigel. But what he did was he thought about a Chatzi Zayis Chutz L'Zman, then a Chatzi Zayis Chutz L'Mokim, and Chatzi Zayis Chutz L'Zman. So Rava says, Vayikatz ki yoshen apigel. Quotes a pasuk. Vayikatz ki yoshen. This guy is asleep. He's dormant. He's a half a kazayis apigel, means nothing. And then you went and you were mevatel, sort of. You ruined this half by putting in a chutz l'makim, because this chutz l'zman has to be pure. And it's not a pure thought now because you did a half a thought of chutz l'makim. But because this is only a half a kazayis, so we're going to pretend that these two are together. This chutz l'zman is together, and the chutz l'makim is by itself. This guy right over here reawakens. We reawaken him and put him together with him, and boom, we have a full kazayis of chutz l'zman, and therefore it's a good pigul. You're chayiv kares if you go ahead and you eat this animal. No, look at this. This is a mixture of thoughts. You see, it's blue, pink. Blue means that this is not a complete thought of pigul, and therefore you don't get kares for this. What's my raya? That I'm right, that you could reawaken something that fell asleep? It's not. We learned. Kebeitza oichel rishon ukebeitza oichel sheni. Shebelol and zebazeh. The way Tumah works, super simple. This is the top mace, avi avois Tumah we call him. And it always goes down one step. It keeps on dropping. If avi avois Tumah, if a dead person touches a human being, he drops one level of Tumah to Avatumah. Avatumah is also a dead rat. But he's not Avi Avois Tumah. It starts off at Avatumah. If Avatumah touches food, like this, then this food drops one level, goes from Avatumah to a Rishon. If a Rishon touches something else, so it drops one level and it becomes a Sheni. Kibeitza Oichel Rishon. This is a full egg. Let's pretend these are all full now. This is a Rishon. If this touches something, what happens? The next thing becomes a Sheni. Ukibaitza Oichel Sheni. And this guy starts off as a Sheni. If this touches something, the next thing becomes a Shlishi, or depends on what it is, it'll become Pasul. Shlishi means that it has the power to give on to another generation, make something a Revi. Most of the time it stops. But let's just pretend these two guys are full eggs. We got a Rishon over here, super Tameh, and we got a Sheni. What happened? Shebelol and Zebazeh. They got mixed in. They're very hard to know which one is what. They look similar. The green and blue are very similar. In this case, it's clear, but they didn't have a color, and they got mixed in. And then the two of them together touched, I don't know what, touched the kli. A kli is not a good example, but just for today. They shouldn't make this tummy. But anyways, let's say the two of them together touched this. What does this become? What does this become, Rabbi Isai? Right. Again, this is a Rishon, this is a Sheni, and I touched two of them, both of them together. What happens? This becomes a Sheni because it for sure touched the Rishon somewhere. I don't care if there's a Sheni there. It touched the Rishon in there, and therefore, it's a Rishon. Chilkon, so it becomes a Sheni. It's as if we view it as a Rishon, and a Rishon makes a Sheni. Chilkon, but if you separate them, Zeh Sheni v'Zeh Sheni. So each one we have to pretend it's the lesser of the two. The lesser of the two is a Sheni. Sheni is less than a Rishon. Now, what if you put them back together? So Rava wants to say it's the same thing like in our sugi. Put them back together, now they reawaken. A minute ago, you treated them as a sheni, which could only make one step lower, a shlishi. Now, if you put them back together, you view them as a rishon. Chazar zeh b'zeh, rishon. Maybe I skipped. No, chilkan zeh sheni, I did skip. I went back. Chilkan zeh sheni v'zeh sheni. Chazar v'yirvan rishon havi. They become a rishon. How do I know? It says Gemara, it says over there, Nofal zeba'atzmoy al kikr shel truma. If each one of these eggs fell on a loaf of bread of truma, psalua. Psalua means that we pretend that a sheni touched it, not a rishon. Because if a rishon touched it, it wouldn't say psalua, it would say sheni. But it says psalua, it became pasul. If a sheni touches bread of truma, only truma, because it was chulin, it wouldn't do anything. But if a sheni touches a truma bread, it makes the truma pasul. So we treat it as a sheni, naflu shneim ka'achas. But if they fell together, or like when one egg is touching the loaf of bread, the second egg comes and hits it on the head. Now we know that for sure a rishon touched it, and it becomes a sheni. I completely didn't understand this whole tzushtel, and I thought that the Rishon never went away, never went to sleep. But okay, we just don't know which one it is. So he kind of discusses it. But over here, Rav Hamnuna says that if you have this case, let's go back to this case. Chutz l'zman half a shear, chutz l'makom half a shear, chutz l'zman half a shear. You don't put the two blues together. It's a combination of different machshavas, and it never becomes real pigul a pigul of karas. Says Rav Hamnuna, how do I know this? It's not. If food touched the half a kezayis of avatuma would make the next thing. What does avatuma make? What's the step under avatuma? A rishon. So if avatuma, half a shear, a half a kezayis of, we have to pretend that these eggs are zaysim, a half a kezayis b'shenitma b'vladatuma, or a rishon touched food. So now, if a rishon touches food, it becomes a sheni. Mistar from zem zeh l'tamei b'kal sheb'shneim. We pretend. So if we have two halves, this is a rishon, this is a sheni. Very good. Now you put them together. Put them together. So what do you have? You can't say that this is the greater of the two, because one of them is less. One of them has less power to be matama. One of them is a sheni, one of them is a rishon. So we're going to pretend that they're both shenis. We're going to combine them together as a sheni. We combine them as one kezayis of sheni. My love, avagav the hoder malya. Oh, here, Rabbi, I took another half a kezayis of rishon, and I put it into the mix. Even if I do that, it remains a sheni. Why? I put two rishons here, and this should be a rishon. So you see, like me, Rav Hamnuna, that what? You don't reawaken this guy. This guy went to sleep. We called him a sheni. Even if you add another half. So the Gemara says, who told you? You just made something up. My love, avagav the hadar malya. Even if you add another half, it stays and remains a sheni? No. So the Gemara says, there's nothing's forcing you to say that you just added another half a rishon to make it, and it stays a sheni. No, maybe if you added another half a rishon, so now they both come together and they are a rishon. So now we're going to have three cases. Very, very similar, but different. All from the same person. Three Talmidim are going to tell us that they heard from their Rebbe what they heard. Chatzi zayis chutz l'makom. This is the chutz l'makom, right? So here it goes. Chutz l'makom, half a kezayis. V'chatzi zayis chutz l'zmanoi. And a half a zayis chutz l'zmanoi. V'chatzi zayis chutz l'zmanoi. He had three thoughts. These two chutz l'zmans were two different thoughts. But each one was a half. Half, half, half. You put the two zmanos together, and what do you have? Two halves of a zman. You have a full pigul. Tani bar kapara pigul. Why? Because ein chatzi zayis moed b'makom. This guy, this makom guy, this pink guy, cannot hurt a full kazayis. He's a half a shear. We don't care about him. Even though we started with a bad machshava, he was a half a machshava, a half a kazayis. So that's not going to affect and ruin. Because when you want to do a chutz l'zman and you want to be over, you're a tzaddik. You want to be over on the aveira of pigul, mamish l'kol deis, even in brisk. So you have to do one zayis of pigul with nothing, no machshava of chutz l'makom. This half of makom is zero. We don't even look at him. So what we see here is two halves of blue, which equal one whole blue, which equals to one full pigul. This half of pink does nothing for me. So now we're just going to do the opposite. Here we go. It's this case. He started out with a beautiful machshavas pigul, a whole kizayis. Half plus half equals a whole of chutz zman. At this point, what do we have? Pigul. He eats it, karas. And then the chacham, he adds another half a machshava, a half a kizayis of chutz l'makom. That's Tani bar kapara pigul ein chatzi zayis moel b'makom kizayis. This we could understand. This is less of a chiddush. He already had a full pigul, and then he added afterwards a half a kazayis. It's a half a kazayis. It doesn't ruin it. Had this been a whole, if this chutz l'makom would have been a whole, then it would have ruined it. But since it's a half, it doesn't ruin something strong and geshmak like a full kazayis of chutz l'zman. Rav Ashi masna ochi, and Rav Ashi said, no, this is what Bakar Parah said. Chatzi zayis chutz l'zman v'chatzi ukezayis. So first of all, we got this. Now check this out. This is by itself. These two halves come from one whole egg. Okay? Pretend, I don't want to touch it. Pretend this is the egg. He has one egg, and he divides this one egg in his mind, half zman, half makam. But before he did that, he thought about a half a zman. Here on the right, a half a blue egg is zman. And then from a full egg, he went and he split it in half. Half zman, half pigul. First the half is by zman. And then you take a whole kezayis. On that, Tani bar kapara pigul ein chatzi zayis moel b'makom zayis. This pink guy, even though it's in the same kezayis as the blue guy, but now we're going to pretend that it goes like this. Now we have two blues together, two half kezayisim, and therefore it's a beautiful pigul. Omer Rabbi Chishev sheichlu klavim lemachar. Chutz l'zman, we said, has to do with eating. You are going to eat the steak next year. Or the mizbeach is going to eat the steak next year. How does the mizbeach eat? By putting it on the mizbeach or by sprinkling the blood on the mizbeach. That's a type of achila. It has to be eating. If the thought of eating when you're going to eat it is after the allotted time, more than 2 days, more than a day, then it becomes pigul. What if you thought that the dogs are going to eat it? Is that also eating? Says the Gemara, yes. The lashon of eating applies to dogs as well. Chishev sheichlu klavim lemachar pigul, then it becomes pigul. The Siv v'asizevel yoichlu haklavim b'chelek Israel, that the dogs are going to eat Achav's Russia wife, Mershas, Yizevel. So you see that eating and dogs go together. Just because it says the word oichel by a dog doesn't mean that that's considered an achila. It also says the word oichel by fire. L'machar the siv, tachleu eish leinupach hachanami the pigul. If you're I'm gonna bring this home, and the fire is gonna consume the meat. That's considered an achila. The chidim hachanami, and if you're gonna say yes, but nan, you say yeah. Why not? Fire eats also. Dogs eat. Fire eats. What's nan? Lechol kachatzi zayis ulakti kachatzi zayis kosher. We had in the Mishnah. If a person had a thought of eating a half a kezayis and put the other half a kezayis on the mizbeach, that's not pigul. Why? Shein achila v'aktar mitzarfim. This is an achila, but that's an aktara. So you see, aktara putting on the mizbeach is not considered to an achila that we call achila of consuming. Says Gemara, no, you're wrong. The reason why over there it doesn't go together, had he said, here, let's just use it again, why not? If he said, I'm going to eat this half a kazayis, the mizbech is going to eat this half a kazayis, it would have worked. The problem is he said, I'm going to eat this half a kazayis, and I'm going to be makter this half a kazayis. He used the lashon of aktara. That's why it doesn't work. It's not only that this animal, this dog, consumes things, but you have to use the lashon achila by the dog. You have to use the lashon achila by the fire. Maybe if you would have used the lashon achila by a fire could eat. Love this. Tell you why I like it, because it's going to mamish. You can learn new yesodis from this. Now what? What if the kohen thought in his mind, the blue half, Noam Fix is going to eat in 3 days from now. The pink half, Avi Kamiyansky is going to eat in 3 days from now. Do the two halves combine to make one kazayis of pigel? What's the shaila? The Kishira, in his one thought, he thought about two people consuming two halves, and two halves equal a whole. Do we go by the human being that's eating it, and each human being only ate a half a shear? You're not going to believe this. If a person tried to combine two thoughts, to eat a half a gezayis, and to put on the mizbech half a gezayis, kosher. So the Gemara says, but I could infer, Amud Beis. What if he would have said, you're going to eat, and the mizbech is going to eat, a lashon of eating, two different people, mitzdarif, shmamina, and the Gemara stays like this. Then what? That two people with two achilas of two half a shiurim can combine for the shear. What's the question? Because typically speaking, midaraisa, food, eating in the sukkah is a pras. On Pesach night, for sure, achilas pras. It has to be a certain time. But you know those people, they put the whole matzah in their mouth. You have to no, seriously, the whole kazayis in one shot has to be like one swallow. It's like a whole. Do we compare it to what a human being eats, and that's a pras, or do we look at what the mizbeach eats? My initial thought was, wow, it's a fire, so fire is quicker, but it seems like a fire is slower than a human being. You chew, and you swallow it, and it takes only a few minutes. If you put a piece of steak on a flame, on a fire, until it consumes it completely, where it's done, where it's like charcoal, that's more than achilas pras. So do we compare it to a human being or to the mizbeach? Kosher. You had a second ago. If a person thinks about a half a gezayis and a half a gezayis, one to eat, one to consume, and one to put on the mizbeach, it's not pigel. Why? Because the achila, the word achila and aktara, they don't go together. Time the lechol lahaktir or lechol lechol. What if he said the lashon of achila? I'm eating this, and the mizbeach is eating mitzvah. V'aktar b'yod day achilas pras. So how could it be mitzvah? There's a problem. It's going to take longer on the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, Dilma Bezagadol, who said, maybe if I put up the flame and it's a massive fire, it'll consume it real quickly. If he thinks in his mind that he's going, we just said it 3 times, we'll say it again. He thought in his mind a half a kazayis to eat and a half a kazayis to put on the mizbeach, lahaktir. That's not pigel. Time of the lechol lahaktir, halechol lechol, lechol. What if he thought to himself he's going to consume? That's because he put on the. What if he's going to consume a murim? Do I have a murim here? Not today. Something that's not something that you eat, something like a murim, like the kidneys that you put on the mizbeach. It seems like mitzdarif. Haktani reisha, but it says in the reisha lechol, it's shadarki lechol. It says mefurish that it has to be something that's normal to eat. As shadarki lecholin, it seems like it's something edible. She'ein darki loy, but the kidneys that you put on a mizbeach, they're not edible. Why are they not edible? Not because they're not edible, because it's something that you never eat. It's something that a human being puts on the mizbeach that you don't put in your mouth. And I'm talking about a carbon. Or And this is also a Rebbe that we had already. You can combine the two thoughts. What the Mizbeach consumes, what a human being consumes, are interchangeable and they can be put together in one thought. If somebody, as he's performing the Avodah, he thinks to himself, I'm going to eat this, even though it's not something that's normal to put on the Mizbeach, or not something that's normal to eat, kosher. Why? He combined the two thoughts. He combined the thought, he said, achila of Mizbeach, and that's not something that, there's achila sadam and there's achila Mizbeach. Don't confuse the two. Rebbe Lezer Paisel, Rebbe Lezer says, no, the two thoughts, Rebbe Lezer Paisel, Abaye Omar, afilu temer Rabbanon. Even though Rabbanon said you cannot interchange the two thoughts, achila sadam and achila Mizbeach, but, says Abaye, what was your whole point? Your point was you made a deal. You said, his dig was, it says lechol, but what if it's something that's not the way to eat? No, that's not what the dig is going to be. It's going to be in other words, that even though I don't have a full kazayas, I could combine the two halves to make it a whole, to make it pigul. That's what I'm going to infer. So, but what's the chiddush in that? You take two half accusations. Here, two halves like this. These two halves become one whole pigul. The two blues, two half blues. If I'm telling you that two half accusations, this is something that's normal to eat, and it becomes one pigul, that I already know from the beginning of the Mishnah. It says, what if I took a half a gezayis, but I had two thoughts, in one whole zayis I had two thoughts. One half was for Zman, and one half was for Makkah. What's the halacha? Puzzle. It's not real pigul. It makes it possible, not pigul. But I can infer from that though, pigul, and another chatzi zayis l'machar is pigul. Well, I should read it like this. So chatzi zayis l'machar, v'oid chatzi zayis l'machar, pigul. The reason why this doesn't work is because one is here. This is a better example. The reason why is because this is Zman and half of it is Makim. So these two don't go together. But what if I did this? Zman and Zman, two halves to make one whole. That does work. So I could see from our Mishnah that two halves combine to make pigul. And if you're going to tell me that the Chiddush is ilechol ulahakter, that if I say this half I'm going to consume, and this half I'm going to put on the Mizbeach, and it doesn't combine, there's no tziruf, that I could already learn with the Yugad Dereisha Shemam. I could also learn this from the beginning of the Mishnah. Lechol davar shedarke lechol in, shein darke lechol loy. It says before in the Mishnah that has to be something that it's typically speaking I eat. If it's not something I eat, then no. It's not a machshava pigul. Hashnu malechol v'lechol davar shein darke lechol loy mitzaref. If I use the lashon of achila, eating and eating, half, eating and eating something that's not edible, it doesn't go together. Lechol lahakter. So if I stick in another word, haktar, instead of eating, of course it's not good. Lechol lahakter, my boy. Says no. Lechol lahakter itzrich. Maybe I wanted to say it in such a way that he said he used two different types of languages, achila and haktara. That's not normal to think like that. Why? Because haktara for a human being. But when he talks in a normal fashion, maybe the two of them, the achil of the mizbeach and the achil of the adam, should combine together. But he said it at least in a normal way. That they're not mitzaref. Hadron aloch kol zevachim shekilu daman. Hadron aloch kol zevachim shekilu daman. Hadron aloch kol zevachim shekilu daman. Rabbi say, Isru Chag Sameach, a gesunte Winter. Shkoyach for coming.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDAF.com.